Rick and Morty Season 8 is right around the corner, and it's shaping up to be one of the most interesting seasons of the show. For the first time in a while, the direction of the series is kind of up in the air. Rick Prime has been defeated, evil Morty's off doing his own thing, and it feels like the show has mostly taken care of Rick's baggage. It's almost like a clean slate, which makes everything we've seen around Season 8 super appealing to me. It seems like a return to basics while simultaneously wrapping up some loose ends. With the return of the Galactic Federation, Morty Jr., and even a brand new Citadel of Ricks. They've used a lot of production art and animatics to promote Season 8, which I think is really dope as it champions the hardworking artists that make the show what it is. I'm going to run through all the trailers, teases, and titles for this season to figure out what each episode will be about and give y'all a good idea of what's in store for Adult Swim's most iconic duo. Kicking off this season is Summer of All Fears. Going by the animatics shown in the episode titles vid, a background shown on an Instagram post, and snippets from the Season 8 trailers, this is going to be a very blatant Matrix parody. Notice the green alphabet on this monitor and references to the film in this background. Morty and Summer are both wearing helmets that connect them to some sort of machine Rick created, but something goes awry within the simulation and causes the two to shriek in horror as the machine displays an error message. Considering Rick immediately reaches for a device to subdue the kids, that Summer in particular tries to run from, he's definitely trapping them in the Matrix to teach them a lesson. The second trailer shows a message that reads, "Never take Grandpa's phone charger," and he scolds Morty in the first trailer for messing with his car. So this is classic Rick being petty about the kids touching his stuff and going overboard to prove a point, but it gets out of control. Opening the season with a movie parody feels like a throwback to the early days of the show, especially Season 1 with how on the nose the parody seems to be. This episode also has an adult Summer in it, and she's wearing a necklace that seems to be an electric plug. I'm assuming that's connected to Rick's phone charger, and her adult form is a part of the simulation, so we might get an adult Morty too. At one point, Beth also tries to force Summer back into the Matrix and declares this is for your own good. And Summer is sporting the same haircut as the adult Summer design, so this Matrix therapy might be something Beth and Jerry are also in on, instead of Rick taking matters into his own hands. I like the idea of the adults collaborating on a scheme like this. It feels like a nice development. Another scene from the first trailer shows Rick trying to literally unplug the Matrix, only to get shocked and collapse right into the chair Summer was sitting in. So maybe Morty will go for some easy payback and send his grandpa in against his will. Next up is Valk, a Galactic Federation centric episode. It's also a Rick and Space Beth adventure, which seems promising. I actually think it'll be about Space Beth trying to escape her father's shadow. When she was introduced, the writers made a point to highlight that Space Beth's current gig of doing a Star Wars was something Rick also did in his 30s, which we've seen bits and pieces of throughout the show. There's a scene in the second trailer where Beth is all suited up while Rick is just chilling in his lab coat and snacking on some food, almost as if he's just along for the ride and letting Space Beth lead the way on this endeavor. He asserts that his daughter is just as dangerous as him after being confronted by the Federation soldiers, since they only acknowledge him. It all just gives the vibe that Space Beth is constantly being compared to her dad when on adventures, and she feels like she has something to prove, but the world refuses to give her the recognition that she thinks she deserves. Yet she keeps missing the mark and making rookie mistakes, evident by the fact that at some point in this episode, she'll either contract an alien virus or get poisoned by her adversaries. She's shown violently coughing and is clearly ill, though the Federation is just kinda grossed out by it. She's definitely not kicking the bucket since we know she's in other episodes this season, which feeds into the idea that her sickness is just something to add stakes to the story and show that she slips up more than she realizes. The Gromflamites are also trying to level up as a threat, as they've started enhancing themselves, transforming into gigantic warriors that try to take on Rick and Space Beth. This season seems eager to give us banger after banger, as the third episode, The Rick, the Mort, and the Ugly, explores the new Citadel of Ricks and Mortys. The piece of background art we got for this episode conveys a lot of information. Variants of Rick and Morty have relocated the destroyed Citadel to a planet and have built an entire town around it whilst it's being reconstructed. It's also on land instead of in space, which I think is a nice way to switch things up. I'm happy they didn't just abandon this world after evil Morty did. Just like the glory days of the Citadel, however, there definitely seems to be a hierarchy and rougher parts of the neighborhood, as Rick drives by what he dubs the Morty part of town, which does seem to be populated by homeless Mortys who have seen better days. My theory is that these Mortys are struggling to survive on their own, but don't want to come crawling to the Ricks, who are resourceful enough to keep their broken society afloat, but demand that any Mortys who live on their side of town abide by their rules. The Ricks of the new Citadel want things to go back to how they used to be prior to evil Morty's time as president, when it was just the Citadel of Ricks, and all the Mortys Mortys had very little power. They saw what happened when they let a Morty run the show. They were ensnared in a vortex of death and destruction, and now there's a huge prejudice against Mortys. What really convinces me is that this long-hair, balding Rick goes out of his way to disrespect a waiter Morty inside the Citadel, and later he and his gang of Ricks are shown abducting these poor defenseless Mortys. Balding Rick even instructs the others to burn this shelter down. It remains to be seen if our Rick and Morty will play an active role in this episode, or if the scene of them cruising by in the ship will be their only real appearance to get the ball rolling, just like how the Rick-Lantis mix-up used their Atlantis adventure to mask what the episode was really about. But now it also needs all the viewership it can get, so they're not trying to hide a Citadel episode from us. The Rick-Lantis mix-up is by far one of the best episodes of the whole show, so another episode of that kind of vibe will be welcomed. But we do know from the animatics that Rick and Morty will likely get stranded near the new Citadel, so it may be more akin to close encounters of the Rick kind, where our Rick and Morty get roped into a larger Citadel conflict. Episode 4 of the season will be The Last Temptation of Jerry, a crazy Easter-themed episode. The early preview for this season was a scene where Jerry was trying to get everyone in the Easter spirit, but no one was biting. And the April Fool's Day preview was a scene where Rick and Morty arrive at a place celebrating German Easter, and it's very cultish. They literally worship the Easter Bunny, people wearing Easter Bunny masks and selling Easter memorabilia. This pit stop seems to be a small part in a larger Easter egg hunt, where Rick and Morty slowly assemble Easter eggs, and Rick ends up beefing with space Christians who are looking for the Easter Bunny? I guess the Easter Bunny is going to have his own crazy lore in the Rick and Morty mythos. This is poised to be a very goofy episode. I feel like we're going to get to a point where Rick and Morty has an episode for every holiday, and I welcome that with open arms. Episode 5 is Cryomort or Rickver, which I'm pretty sure is taking a stab at the gambling epidemic with the casino aesthetic found in clips and backgrounds. It's very hard to gauge what's going on aside from the fact that we're getting the Constellatio Rick design in this episode, and at some point there's going to be an angry mob. Episode 6 is the Curixis case of Betham and Button, which is another Space Beth episode, although it seems to split the focus 50-50 between her and Earth Beth. I recently found out Space Beth is one of the most hated characters of the show, which surprised me given that there are a lot better picks for that title, so I guess the crew behind the show want to change her perception. The animatic in the episode title's preview appears to be a montage that cuts back and forth between Earth Beth's duties as a horse surgeon and Space Beth's duties as an intergalactic rebel, which is very cinematic. I already know whatever licensed song they cover for the scene is gonna slap. I feel like this episode might explore both Beths feeling fatigued of the lives they chose, and they potentially switch places. Earth Beth walking a mile in Space Beth's shoes and vice versa. And it makes me wonder, will we finally find out which one is the clone? And at this point, does it even matter? I'm expecting that this episode will have something to say about fulfillment and never being satisfied. Loaning Beth was supposed to be a long-term solution to that sort of crisis, but it may have just been a band-aid that's starting to peel off. This episode is definitely going to be a sequel to the ABCs of Beth and Starmort Rick Turner to Jerry, as the background art they teased from this episode revealed the return of Froopyland, Beth's not-so-fantasy world that Rick created for her when she was a kid. Episode 7, Ricker Than Fiction, is another crazy episode where I can't tell what's going on. We have these wacky characters that look like they're ripped out of Aqua Teen, with this robot Christmas tree killing a cactus by the name of Baron Tissel in broad daylight. Rick and Morty witness this execution on live television, which leads me to suspect that this may be another take on interdimensional cable. We also know Rick and Morty will likely get involved in these antics, as we have that sick shot of them getting sucked into a square-shaped vortex with images of the robot Christmas tree behind them. It's gonna be a weird one. I'm gonna take a stab and say episode 8, No Mortland, is the episode where Rick takes Summer and Jerry to a rundown interdimensional theme park. The animatic preview shows Jerry and Rick in vacation mode, with the Smith household relocated to a small island on the ocean. The background does imply we might get the return of the prime Smith family household, which has completely frozen over, so maybe this won't just be a goofy one-off adventure. Though, since we're getting a lot of beefy episodes this season, I wouldn't hold my breath. Though it'd be nice if Rick took his family to this theme park, even in its rundown state, because he used to bring his original Beth when she was a kid. Episode 9 is Morty Daddy. The animatic shows Rick and Summer eating at a fancy alien restaurant, but whereas Rick gets a 5-star meal, Summer gets a toast with some green mush on it. I don't think that's avocado. Because of the episode title, I'm banking on the Morty Jr. comeback happening here, though now he's practically a senior citizen while his dad is still a teenager. I assume the snippet has nothing to do with the core premise of the episode if that's the case, so long as Morty Jr.'s return isn't just a quick gag and actually relevant to the story. When we last saw Morty Jr., he was a grown man who turned on his father for imprisoning him for most of his life, although it was so Morty Jr. wouldn't go on a killing spree. Maybe he's come around on his father in the time since, or maybe his writing endeavors are starting to land Morty in some pretty hot water. Can't wait to see what's going on there. Episode 10 is of course course, the season finale, Hot Rick. And it appears to be an all-hands-on-deck type of episode as the whole Smith family gathers around Rick as he cycles through Jerry's memories. The first of which being a party. Both Beths are here, so I'm guessing whatever happens in episode 6 just brings them closer together. We have literally nothing to work with besides this out-of-context snippet. The background art they released for this one looks like the Windows XP backdrop, so I'm just gonna assume they're hiding some crazy shit. Maybe this is where those clips of Jerry binge eating like a lunatic comes from. And real quick, let's go through the new scenes in the opening for this season, figuring out which ones are from episodes and which ones are fake. I want to say the two Beths thumb wrestling is a fake scene, but one that represents their arc in the season, though knowing this show, it could very easily be real. I'm 50-50 on it. Next we have goat variants of the Smith family chewing on a barrel. You'd think this be fake, but Goat Beth on the season 8 poster indicates it's very real. Whether these Smiths are from another universe or our Smiths are going through a transformation is yet to be seen. Also, peep the two Jerrys watching in the mouse hole. Maybe this is from Hot Rick and we end up having an interdimensional Jerry adventure. Guess we'll wait and see. We see a Rick get kneed in the groin by Morty. The shape of their ears matches a Constellatio Rick model sheet, so I assume this is a real scene from Cryomort or Rickver. Then, appealing to a section of shippers out there, we have Mr. Nimbus giving Rick a peck on the cheek before they both reach for some other kind of cheeks, you know what I'm saying? While the show has implied the two have a past, I'm leaning towards this being a fake scene pitched by someone on the show who ships the two, as I don't think we've seen Nimbus in any of the marketing for the season, and I feel like this is gonna catch some people off guard. Finally, we have the Smith family as Tetris pieces, with Jerry being one of the worst pieces in the game that is just impossible to fit in with the rest. Pretty on the nose commentary about his place in the family, but it's hilarious to see in action. I definitely say this scene is fake though. It just feels more like a gag they came up with out of thin air than an actual scene from an episode. With all that said, these are my predictions around Rick and Morty season 8, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Let's get a dialogue going in the comments. If you want to stay in the loop of all things animation, please subscribe to the roundtable with notifications on, and give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram at AwestruckVox. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an awesome day. Peace. Hey, YouTube thinks you should click on one of these videos. When I don't listen to the algorithm, bad things happen. Or am I thinking of my dad?